You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and leave it to the Patriots to find themselves in the news on June 29th. I mean, seriously, only the Patriots could do that. One good reason and one bad reason. I'll break them both down along with some other stuff. You know the drill. But I gotta start with Cam Newton. And finally, Bill Belichick gets his head out of his ass and adds a legitimate quarterback. Make no mistake about it. Cam Newton is a legitimate quarterback in this league. Just 2 years ago, this guy completed 68% of his passes for just under 3,400 yards, 24 touchdowns, and only 13 interceptions. He also ran for 4 more. I mean, we know the type of player that Cam Newton is. He's a really, really good quarterback. Is he great? No. I would not use the word great to describe Cam Newton. Even during the MVP season, I don't think Cam Newton was ever great. This is a guy with really only one great season under his belt. The MVP season, 2015. That doesn't make you a great player. So the idea that this automatically turns the Patriots around from being in the doldrums of the AFC East to now being in the Super Bowl conversation, no, that is not true. Now, they are in the wild card conversation. This signing does do that. It does vault them into the wild card conversation. And they're probably the second best team in the AFC East right now. I'd still put the Bills ahead of them. I just think you look at that roster top down, the Bills have more talent. Quarterback was the biggest need for the Patriots, but they still don't have a great roster. I mean, even last year they didn't have a great roster. There's a reason they lost in their only playoff game last year. But it's still a roster that can compete for a playoff spot. Nothing's given. This isn't Brady we're talking about. We're talking about Cam Newton here. A really good quarterback, but not Brady. I mean, take a look at the AFC. There are a bunch of teams that got better. The Broncos got a lot better. The Colts got a lot better. Even the 2 other teams in the AFC that I didn't mention, the Dolphins and Jets, they got a lot better. The Steelers are going to be better. The Browns are going to be a lot better. The Bengals are going to be better. I'm not saying that all those teams are better than the Patriots, but there's more competition than the Patriots have had in a long time. But this is a move that was long overdue. And like I said, give credit to Belichick. In all seriousness, great move by the Patriots. Long overdue. they replace a former MVP with another former MVP. Newton has to be the starter. It's not Stidham, okay? It's just not. Belichick and McDaniels can wax poetic about Stidham all they want, but they're not sold on him. This signing proves that, and they shouldn't be sold on him. I saw Jarrett Stidham play in Week 3 against the Jets. And I saw a bad quarterback. Now, I understand that doesn't mean he's going to flame out of the league. Maybe Stidham turns into a solid player. It's clear that the Patriots do like him. Okay, fine. Nothing wrong with that. But to start? No. Unless Newton plays like garbage in the preseason and Stidham lights it up, there's no reason for Cam Newton to not start over Stidham. And even then, I wouldn't be surprised if Newton still got the start on opening day. The one thing I'll say is, don't automatically say that Newton is gonna revert to his 2018 form. This is a guy who got hurt at the end of that 2018 season with a shoulder injury, and last year only played in 2 games because he had a Lisfranc injury. He's going to be 31 when the season starts. You can't say that Newton is going to be Superman again. You can't say that he's going to be that dynamic dual threat quarterback that can kill you with his arm as well as his legs. 12 months ago, you probably could have put Cam Newton in the upper half of NFL starters at quarterback. Now, you can't. I mean, the Panthers couldn't wait to get rid of this guy. They tried to trade him like crazy. They couldn't. They ended up cutting him so they can sign Teddy Bridgewater. They think that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a better quarterback than Cam Newton. I like Bridgewater, but Bridgewater has never won MVP. Bridgewater has never taken his team to within 1 win of a Super Bowl trophy. When you combine everything, the fact that he missed most of last season with the fact that the Patriots don't have a great roster and the AFC got a lot better, how can you confidently say that the Patriots are a playoff team? Can they get there? Yes, they absolutely can. Are they there overnight? No. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't think I'm going to pick the Patriots to make the playoffs this year. I just don't see them as a playoff team. Even with the expanded playoffs going into effect this year, I don't see them as a playoff team. I have the Bills in the East, the Ravens and Browns in the North, the Texans and Titans in the South, and the Chiefs and Broncos in the West. It's certainly possible that the Patriots can sneak in. No question. Whenever you have Bill Belichick as your coach, yeah, you're in the playoff conversation. But talent wins over scheme. I've said it a million times. You can have the best coach in the world, but if he doesn't have a good roster, how good is that team going to do? Well, this is the ultimate test case of that. Again, the Patriots don't have a great roster. They did the right thing in adding Cam Newton. Great move. Made a ton of sense. And assuming Newton stays healthy, I think he'll do a damn good job for the Patriots. But I don't see him as a playoff team. I see them as a team that's going to hover around 500. Better than they would have been over Stidham, but not as good as they were under Brady. The other Patriots news concerns a real nothing burger of a story. I mean, look, no one hates the Patriots more than me, and I'd love to say that this is the smoking gun. The Patriots are cheaters. They always have been. We need to strip them of all their Lombardi trophies and Super Bowl rings and all that stuff. But no, this is a nothing burger. The punishment they got for filming the Bengals sideline. If you didn't see it, they got stripped of their third rounder next year, and they're going to be fined $1.1 million. Usually I'd say that the 1.1 mil is a drop in the bucket for Robert Kraft, but there's a real chance that the NFL plays games without fans in the stands. So, the Patriots are going to lose a lot of money, as is every team. That 1.1 mil can hurt. Now, I don't want Goodell to use this as a precedent setter where, look how much the 1.1 mil hurt, fines can seriously hamper a team. No. This is a crazy situation. We've never had anything like this before in our lifetimes. No. This should not be a precedent setter. The draft pick can be used as a precedent setter, but not the fine. If you want to fine teams, go ahead, but don't say that it's a true detriment to breaking the rules. It's not. We know it's not. But going back to the story, I just don't think there's a lot here. Think about it logically. Do the Patriots really need to film the Bengals to get a competitive edge? They're the Bengals. I mean, they were abysmal last year. They were the worst team in the NFL. They only had 2 wins against the Jets and the Browns. They didn't need a competitive advantage against them. Look, we all know that Belichick isn't going to turn down any little edge he can get, but to the people saying that this was some big Patriots plot, no, it wasn't. I know it's hard to believe the Patriots, but I kinda do in this case. It just doesn't make any sense to not believe them. If you don't believe them, then you have to think that this was some big communist plot that the Patriots did for every team. They wouldn't have done it for the Bengals and no one else. They were facing much stiffer competition last year than the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, this is just a nothing burger. I truly believe that this was a misunderstanding by the New England Patriots TV crew. Now, if you want to say they shouldn't have misunderstood the rules, I'm with you there. And the Patriots said as much. And I think I saw somewhere that they fired the director of that crew. Don't quote me on that, but I think I saw that somewhere. Also, Patriots TV crews are not going to be allowed to film any games in this coming season I mean, we all know the Patriots' history with filming. Cough, cough, Spygate. And I know it's hard to say that nothing was done egregiously since the Patriots have filmed egregiously before. And we all know the Deflategate allegations, which I think was much ado about nothing. Also, Spygate wasn't, and I'm not just saying that as a Jets fan. They clearly went above and beyond there. Anyone who says they didn't is lying to you. And even then, above and beyond seems like the understatement of the year. But back to this, there just isn't a lot here. I know there were some people hoping that this would bring the end of Belichick, but it was never going to do that. I really believe that this was just a big nothing burger. Believe me, I'd love to say that Goodell messed this up and the Patriots acted incredibly wrong and they should be stripped of everything. But I can't say that. There just isn't enough here. Oh my God, they filmed the Cincinnati Bengals sideline. Do you really think they needed to film the Bengals sideline to get an edge? I mean, come on. If it was the Chiefs, or the Ravens, or the Niners, or the Packers, okay, we're talking about the worst team in the NFL here. There just isn't anything here. I think the NFL got this right. I really, really do. Moving over to basketball now, and I have to talk about the Lakers bringing in J.R. Smith. I mean, that's a pretty good guy to bring in for the restart. While we all know that Smith has a tendency to be in his own world a little bit. I mean, we all remember Game 1, 2018. He has every opportunity to take the game-winning shot. No guarantee he would have hit it, but I can't even get through it. But he tries to hold the ball, or he succeeds in holding the ball, and LeBron looks like he wants to kill him afterwards. I thought we were ahead! Look, Smith can be a little bit of a wackadoodle, but he knows how to play with LeBron. He knows, I don't want to say the system that the Lakers run, but I think he's gonna know what he needs to do to help that team win another championship. And you add another shooter like Smith to that team, that's a pretty good fit. I mean, LeBron isn't the best shooter in the world, and neither is Anthony Davis. The Lakers don't have a great three-point attack. They're 17th in the league in three-point percentage. That's middle of the pack. That's not very good. I mean, who's their best three-point shooter? Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? Alright, fine. Pope is a solid player, but he's not great. I'll tell you, I'd rather have J.R. Smith. Danny Green's a fine three-point shooter, but that's all he is. He's a shooter. Granted, he fills what I'm saying the Lakers need, but Smith can do a little more on the interior. He's a good slasher. Smith is better than any shooter the Lakers have. they've been looking for guys to bring in to help them with their stretch run for a long time before the pause. Now with Avery Bradley opting out, they couldn't have done much better than to bring in J.R. Smith. While Smith won't be able to do what Bradley could on the defensive side of the ball, he'll more than make up for it on the offensive side of the ball. Great move for the Lakers. Moving on now to my beloved Nets, bringing in Justin Anderson to replace Wilson Chandler. And I understand that Anderson is nothing special. He only played 3 games for the Nets this year. That was his only NBA action this year. Didn't set the world on fire. I remember watching him and not being very impressed. I mean, he didn't get a lot of playing time, so it's unfair for me to say that he's a bad player, but you look at what he's done in the past, nothing great. In his career, he's averaged under 5.5 points per game, 2.5 rebounds per game. He's not great defensively. I mean, I don't understand why the Nets didn't add Iman Shumpert. Maybe Shumpert doesn't want to come back? But this is a guy who played really well for the Nets early this year. His defense was really good. He was hustling. He was playing the game the right way. Yeah, offensively, he wasn't doing a lot. But I can live with that. I'm not expecting Iman Shumpert to be the focal point of my offense. I'm really surprised that the Nets didn't bring him back. He's so much better than Anderson. He deserves another chance. It would have been kind of ironic if the Nets brought Shumpert back with Wilson Chandler opting out. They're actually similar players. Chandler's better offensively than Shumpert, but they both play the game the right way. They hustle. They're solid defensively. Chandler's not a liability defensively. Yeah, he gets a little overmatched against the bigger power forwards in the league, but he's good when going up against these smaller guys. But Shumpert's a better defender. I'll grant you that. I thought it would have made a ton of sense for the Nets to bring Shumpert back. With Chandler suspended, the Nets brought in Shumpert. With Chandler sitting out the restart, I thought the Nets could have brought in Shumpert again. I don't like this move for the Nets. There were better options to fill this roster spot than Justin Anderson. Moving on now to the Cavaliers, bringing in a couple big men in Jordan Bell and Dean Wade. And I understand, obviously, that this doesn't concern this coming season. The Cavs aren't in the restart. But next year, these guys could see meaningful minutes for the Cavs. Realize they traded for Andre Drummond, and Drummond's a free agent. Now, I think he's going to re-sign with the Cavs, but if he doesn't, Bell and Wade are going to get huge minutes. I always liked Jordan Bell. I thought he played really well for the Warriors. Took a step back his sophomore year, but I still thought he had some potential. He bounced around this year. Best case scenario, he's just a good backup center. Little undersized, but that's okay. He's really good defensively. Ben Wallace was undersized, and he was a fantastic defender. I'm not saying that Bell is Ben Wallace, but Bell is a very underrated defender. Good player. Makes sense for the Cavs to bring him in and give him a shot to make the roster next year. Dean Wade, 2K My Team Beast. He has a good card. I think it's like 92 overall. I understand it's not great this time of year, but you could do worse than that card if you're playing on a really, really strict budget or you're low on MT or whatever. But Wade has talent. In 12 games this year, I liked what I saw. I saw a player who can stretch the floor, positions himself well, plays the game the right way. He has potential. Good move for the Cavs in giving him a real chance to make the roster next year. Made a ton of sense what the Cavs just did here. The last NBA story that I want to talk about concerns Ryan Broekhoff signing with the Sixers. And I understand that this isn't an earth-shattering signing by any stretch, but I actually think it can pay real dividends for the Sixers. What do the Sixers need as a team? Shooters. When you have Ben Simmons as your point guard, you need shooters. They were looking for shooters at the deadline, and they found them in Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson, but those guys have been dreadful for the Sixers as shooters. It was a good idea, but it didn't work. The Sixers are 14th in the league in three-point percentage, which isn't terrible, but they've also attempted the 22nd most three-pointers in the league. That's not going to get the job done. This is a league that's transitioning to you needing a three-point shot to succeed. It doesn't matter what position you play. You're not going to find too many DeAndre Jordans or Tyson Chandlers or Rudy Goberts. There are still those guys in the league, but they're falling off. It's all about the stretch fours or the stretch fives. And look, Joel Embiid has developed a little bit of a three-point shot. He shot 35% from the field this year. Good for him. Alright, he's trying. I give him credit. But no one's going to mistake him for Kristaps Porzingis anytime soon. And Al Horford has been an unmitigated disaster. He's not worth his contract. He's not giving the Sixers that floor spacing element that they wanted when they signed him. The Sixers needed to add a shooter. And they still need to add shooters. I know they can't, but when the offseason hits, whatever holes the Sixers have on their depth chart, fill them with guys who can shoot, regardless of the position. It doesn't matter what else they do. Defensively, they can be a turnstile. But if they can shoot, put them on the Sixers. And that's what Ryan Broekhoff does. Broekhoff, in his career, has made over 40% of his threes. He's 58 for 144 in his career from beyond the arc. Now that's all he does. Alright, he's a catch and shoot guy. But he gives the Sixers that element that they've lacked all year. Who have been their best three-point shooters this year? Shake Milton? Raul Neto? Furkan Korkmaz? That's not going to get the job done. This is a sneaky good move for the Sixers. If he's given playing time, I think he can be a big part of the Sixers bench unit. Moving over to baseball now, and I know this is a minor signing in more ways than one, but I haven't been able to talk Yankees in a long time, so just indulge me for a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy long. I just want to talk a little bit about the Yankees signing Matt Duffy to a minor league contract. Great move. Duffy has been a quality player in this league for a long time, every year of his career, since 2014. He's been good. He's never been great. I mean, this is a guy who was supposed to help the Rays into the future when they traded all their big pieces. It didn't work out. He got hurt in 2017, got hurt last year. Of course he has injury concerns. But he's a good player. Not great, but good. Solid utility infielder. You need guys like that, especially with this type of a season. Quality depth is going to be so important this year. More important than it's ever been. And the Yankees added a quality middle infielder on a minor league deal. God only knows if he's going to make the opening day roster or not. But he's on their 60-man player pool. Or I think it's only 58 for the Yankees. Other teams did other amounts. I know the Mets didn't invite a lot of people, which is fine. But it's a really good move for the Yankees to bring in Duffy. Gives Tyler Wade some competition. Good move. I like that a lot. I do want to talk about the death of Joe Bugel. It's okay if you don't know the name. He made his name as an offensive line coach. And if offensive linemen are underrated, then offensive line coaches are what's worse than underrated? Severely underrated? I don't know. I was thinking there would be a better word for it, but I guess not. Bugel is one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. He's right up there with Dante Scarnecchia of the Patriots. He got his start in the NFL with the Detroit Lions. And he was solid there. He wasn't great. He wasn't terrible. But he made his first real impression in the NFL after that when he went to the Houston Oilers. Those Oilers teams of the mid to late 70s were offensive juggernauts. While we all know that they had Earl Campbell, and Campbell was going to get his regardless of the offensive line. Yeah, it helps if you have a great offensive line. But Campbell was the type of player where he'd still get his regardless of the offensive line. He wouldn't be great, but he'd be good, bordering on very good. But Bugel helped elevate Campbell to elite status. Leon Gray was a 2-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro under Bugel. He was a really good Patriot playing next to John Hanna, but he was great with the Oilers. That offensive line also helped Dan Pastorini succeed. Pastorini had his best seasons with those Oilers teams of the late 70s. He was never a particularly good quarterback, but when Bugel got there, he got the offensive line to gel so much that Pastorini had his best season in 78. In 79, he wasn't a slouch either. In fact, in 78, Pastorini led the NFL with 6 fourth-quarter comebacks and 6 game-winning drives. That's pretty darn good. That's Tim Tebow-like. In 1979, the Chargers were widely expected to beat the Oilers in the playoffs. The Oilers had barely gotten by the Broncos in the wild card game. The 79 Chargers, in Don Coryell's first full season as coach, were offensive juggernauts. Dan Fouts made the Pro Bowl, was first team All-Pro. Clarence Williams had 12 rushing touchdowns. John Jefferson and Charlie Joyner were both 1,000-yard receivers. The Chargers were expected to blow the Oilers out of the building. But the Oilers won 17-14. Even with Pastorini and Campbell not playing. Gifford Nielsen was the quarterback for the Oilers. And the starting running back for the Oilers was Rob Carpenter. That's one of the most underrated playoff upsets in NFL history. In 81, Bugel went to the Redskins, and he immediately made his mark. The Redskins had a 2-win improvement, and then in 82, in the strike-shortened season, the Redskins went on to win the Super Bowl with MVP kicker Mark Moseley. But Bugel deserves a ton of credit for a really underrated part of that team. Like, we all write off that team as just a fluke. You know, the MVP kicker, and yeah, Joe Theismann was really good that year. He made the Pro Bowl. And John Riggins was okay, but, you know, they weren't a great team. No, they were. That offensive line was insane. That was really the birth of the Hogs offensive line. Joe Jacoby, Russ Grimm, Jeff Bostic, Mark May, and an old George Stark started every game for the Redskins that year. The year after that, they scored 541 total points in their 16 games of play. That equates to just under 34 points per game, and at the time was an NFL record. The Redskins went on to go back to the Super Bowl, but they were blown out by the LA Raiders 38-9. Marcus Allen had the famous 74-yard run, taking over from a player playing in that game for the Redskins and a former Jet, John Riggins. I'll fast forward a little bit to 1986. The year before that, Lawrence Taylor broke Joe Theismann's leg on Monday Night Football in one of the worst injuries in sports history. I mean, if you have an iron stomach, watch the clip. If you don't watch it. My mom's a doctor. She had a tough time watching it. The Redskins' replacement in '86 was Jay Schroeder. Not a bad quarterback, but not a great one. Bugel helped make Schroeder look much better than he was. He made his only Pro Bowl in '86, and the Redskins went on to the NFC Championship game, but they got shut out by the Giants 17-0 en route to them winning the Super Bowl over the Broncos 39-20. Phil Simms had one of the greatest games in Super Bowl history. In '87, the Redskins came back with a vengeance. Doug Williams had taken over for Schroeder at quarterback, and with Williams at the helm, the Redskins blew out the Broncos 42-10 in Super Bowl 22, thus making Doug Williams the first African-American quarterback to win a Super Bowl. But the offensive line was a big part of that. They still had Jacoby, Grimm, and May, but Raleigh McKenzie was their starting left guard. He was great that year. And R.C. Thielemann came over from the Falcons a few years prior, 3-time Pro Bowler, and kept his great play up. After that, Bugel's career suffered a little bit of a dip. The Redskins didn't make the playoffs after that for a long time. Bugel went to the Phoenix Cardinals, was absolutely dreadful. We're going to skip over that. Although the one thing I'll say, he wasn't exactly helped by their front office. Their drafting at that point in time was dreadful. I mean, guys like Clyde Duncan, Freddie Joe Nunn, Kelly Stauffer, those guys aren't NFL players. Freddie Joe Nunn had an okay career, but he wasn't great. He went to the Raiders after that, didn't do much, served as their head coach for a year, was replaced by John Gruden, so he's the answer to the trivia question, who did John Gruden replace as Raiders head coach the first time around? And then he went to the San Diego Chargers to coach a young quarterback by the name of Ryan Leaf. You don't need me to tell you how bad Ryan Leaf was, but this plays into an earlier point. You can have the best scheme in the world. I've proven that Joe Bugel was a great offensive line coach. But if you don't have the talent to succeed, you're not going to make it. The New England Patriots with this roster, I don't think they're making the playoffs. The New York Jets, Sam Darnold has no excuse this year. If he doesn't put it all together, I think we're going to need to start considering him as a bust. Kills me to say that. But again, talent wins over scheme in the NFL. There was no excuse for Ryan Leaf to not succeed. Well, he didn't. Thank God after that the Chargers fell into Drew Brees and then orchestrated that trade for Phillip Rivers. Or else their team could have been on a downward spiral that they still couldn't pull out of. When you make a bad pick at quarterback, that sets you back for a long, long, long time. Bugel took a break from the NFL after leaving the Chargers in 2001. Can't say I blame him. But then in 2004, when Joe Gibbs came back as head coach of the Redskins, he brought Bugel with him. And it only took the Redskins 2 years to make it back to the playoffs. They won their wild card game against the Buccaneers 17-10, but then they lost to the Seahawks 20-10. In 2006, Portis got hurt and was replaced by Liddell Betts. It is perfectly fine if you don't know that name. All you need to know is that Betts had his best season by far. He was 1,000-yard back. Only had 4 touchdowns, but still, 1,000-yard back. That's pretty darn good. The fact that Bugel and his offensive line were able to turn this guy into a 1,000-yard back is nothing short of insane. In 2007, Bugel had a really big challenge. Thank you, Wikipedia, for this. I didn't remember this. Replacing the whole right side of his offensive line. John Jansen got hurt, and so did Randy Thomas. Any other coach, that offensive line is going to hell. But Bugel was able to turn guys like Jason Fabini and Todd Wade into competent starters again. Fabini, former Jet, had fallen off, had a career resurgence that year, and Todd Wade, former Dolphin, had fallen off. He had a career resurgence too. The Redskins went on to make the playoffs that year, but they were blown out by the Seahawks in the wild card game. Bugel also helped Chris Samuels immensely. Samuels took his career to new heights under Bugel, made the Pro Bowl for 4 straight years. There is no question that Joe Bugel is one of, if not the best offensive line coach in NFL history. May he rest in peace. On Friday, I teased the fact that I was going to have an interview with a doctor about the coronavirus pandemic. He called me on Saturday to say that he couldn't do it. I'm not going to go into why. It's not important. I do apologize for that. I'm going to keep in contact with him to see if we can reschedule it. I don't know if we'll be able to, but I hope that we will. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that I've seen the future. And it's much like the present, only longer.